What is going on, guys? This is Jake at That Fit Friend, and today we're going to be looking at the Altra Solstice XT2. Now, before we dive into this review, I do want to give a quick shout out to my man Hunter, who recommended that I try this shoe. He also has a YouTube channel. I'm going to drop that down in the description below. Hunter is a great guy, so thanks, man, for shouting out this model. So 3 things to like about this shoe is number 1, if you have a wider foot and you're looking for a cross-training shoe that can kind of play in both worlds of versatility and stability, this is a pretty good model to look into. So this model features Altra's like foot-shaped tech, so it's basically like this wider toe box. We don't have as sharp of a taper compared to like a Nike Metcon. So if you do have a wider forefoot and even a wider midfoot, I think you're gonna like how this shoe fits and feels. It is designed to be purposely wider, especially through the toe box. So as you can see, it does have like this nice wide shape here. The second thing to like about this model is that this shoe features Altra's balanced cushioning. So essentially this means that the shoe has a 0mm heel toe drop, and the foam midsole throughout has your foot in a nice even or natural position where the heel and forefoot are sitting at equal heights. This is great for anybody who likes 0mm heel toe drops. So if you want a shoe that has you more flat to the ground in your cross training for your classes, whatever it might be, this shoe is really great, and it has a nice level of maneuverability. So you get a lot of ground feedback with this model. And overall, I do like the maneuverability you get in the toe box, and with that extra width, you can really grip the floor in this shoe. The third thing to like about this model is that I think this is a really good shoe for more casual training classes and more like athletic focused work. This model is not going to be your best bet for CrossFit or heavier lifting, but if you want something that feels really comfortable for walking, shorter runs, standing, training casually, classes, whatever it might be that isn't so demanding when it comes to being load dominant, this model works really well. The upper breathes really well, it's fairly lightweight, and with this high abrasion foam midsole, you get a nice level of versatility and stability. So this model does a pretty good job, I think, at walking like this middle ground between all these different activities and providing you with a nice wide base and a 0mm toe drop. But that all being said, let's go ahead and dive into a couple of cons I have noticed with this model. So 2 potential cons I could see folks having with the Altra Solstice XT2 include number 1, this is not going to be your best shoe for serious CrossFit and heavier lifting. So this model is more of like a general cross-training shoe, and it lacks some of the niche construction aspects we want in a really stable cross-training shoe or a CrossFit-focused cross-training shoe. So that all being said, we don't have upper construction to really prolong this model's durability, especially for things like rope climbs and a ton of burpee volume. And when it comes to heavier lifting, this model started to have some compression around like 315 in squats and 455 in deads. You can push deads a little bit heavier with this model because it does have this really nice flat 0mm drop, but I would recommend capping your loading around those parameters if you plan on training heavier in this shoe. The high abrasion foam midsole is going to start compressing a little bit for you, and it's definitely not going to give you as much of a stable base as other cross-training shoes. The second potential con I could see folks having with this model is durability. So there are a couple of contexts in which I would say just be a little bit cautious of this model's durability. The first is training outdoors, especially on concrete and asphalt. With the exposed foam layers up here in the forefoot and throughout the midfoot and back here on the heel, we may run into some issues if we're cutting a ton and really digging into where the foam might be getting pressed into the street, concrete, whatever, causing friction. So be conscious of that in this model. And the second area is if you're doing like a ton of burpees or anything that's causing abrasion on the upper, this upper is super lightweight and it's not necessarily designed, I don't think, to be really abrasion resistant. If you can kind of just keep an eye on those 2 aspects, and if you limit their wear in those settings, then I do think this model's durability is pretty good. But again, those are 2 areas where I'd say keep a close eye on this model as a whole. So when it comes to the performance in the Altra Solstice XT2, I'm gonna break this section into a few different parts. We'll talk about lifting, more versatile training, shorter runs, and then daily wear. So when it comes to lifting, this model is okay. I think for most recreational lifters, this model will do a pretty good job, and its stability is like what I would call like middle of the road. It doesn't have the most stable midsole, so you're not gonna be able to train as heavy as you would with something that's a bit more stable in nature. But for most folks who just wanna go and tackle some bodybuilding sessions or some general strength work, this model will work. I mentioned this before, but I started to notice compression around like 315 pounds in squats and 455 pounds in deadlift. So I would say like use those as like light thresholds for scaling your loading accordingly. So when it comes to versatile training, I really like this model. It's super lightweight and breathable, and the sole moves really well. Plus, with this wider toe box, you can really plant the forefoot and drive and propel yourself forward, laterally, or backwards, however you are training. Plus, with this high abrasion midsole, while it might not be the most dense and stable, it does provide you a nice level of versatility. So if you're doing plyometrics or classes, the shoe doesn't beat your feet up. And if you like having, once again, that 0mm toe drop, then I think you're going to really enjoy how this shoe performs, fits, and feels for more versatile and athletic focused training and even class work. When it comes to shorter runs, this model works pretty well, especially if you plan to run like 1, 2, 3 miles in them. So if you're that person that likes to tack on a couple pre or post workout miles, this model will work for you. And the midsole, I think, does a pretty good job of giving you enough responsiveness and stability without beating up the feet if you are running in them. Plus, with their lower stack height, if you like having a slightly more stable running shoe, then this model is going to work really well for you, especially for shorter runs or runs where you're doing like tempo or faster pace work. For daily wear, I also really enjoy this model. It's comfortable, and if you're standing all day or walking all day, I think you're going to enjoy the overall support you get with this shoe, and with how wide the toe box is, it never feels like it's like crunching up your toes. So I do like that feature. The only thing I would say is that with this exposed midsole down here, if it's raining or super muddy, try to limit how much you're wearing this shoe just to avoid like the outdoor elements breaking down this model's foam midsole. But other than that, I think this model is a great day-to-day shoe. Just be conscious of their overall durability. All right, so now let's answer the question, who is the Altra Solstice XT2 best for? I think if you are an athlete or a lifter with a wider foot and you want a shoe that you can kind of do everything in and you like a 0mm toe drop, then this model is a really good pick for you. You can virtually wear this in most training settings and they're going to perform well. Like, they will fall short in CrossFit and heavier lifting, but for my more recreational folks, this is a solid model, especially if you have a wider foot. It definitely gets a TF2 approval, and I am stoked to have them in my cross-training shoe lineup. So when it comes to sizing and fit, I think most lifters and athletes will be safe going true to size in the Altra Solstice XT2. The length fits true, and since we have a wider toe box, this model will work really well for a bunch of different foot widths, so I would recommend going true to size for most folks. So when it comes to price in the Altra Solstice XT2, you can expect to pay $130 USD. Now, personally, I find that price to be a bit hit or miss. Yes, it is in line with most industry standards. However, I would love to see the durability on the shoe increase a little bit for that price. But let's talk about how this price is a hit. I think if you're somebody who has a wider foot and you like having a 0mm toe drop, then this price is a hit because we don't have a ton of shoes on the market that fit those asks. However, if you're somebody who doesn't really have like a wider foot, so you don't necessarily need like a super wide shoe, and you're trying to save a little bit of money, you can definitely find other budget-friendly cross-training shoes that are really great for general training. So that all being said, the price is solid for anybody with those specific asks, but you can definitely shop around and find more budget-friendly options if you're just looking for a general training shoe and you don't really care about your heel to toe drop or width. So when chatting on the weight, heel to toe drop, and insole in this model, for my size 10 model here, we have a weight of 9.6 ounces, which is pretty light for a cross-training shoe. The shoe features a 0mm heel to toe drop, and the insole in this model is removable. All right, so now let's go over the construction in the Altra Solstice XT2. Looking at the toe up here, we have an extended outsole layer that wraps up. It is a little bit thin in nature, and that's also why I'm not the biggest fan of the shoe for a ton of high volume toe dragging activities, because with thinner lips like this, you can typically see them break down a little bit quicker than shoes that have like thicker outsole wraps covering the toe. We do have a synthetic layer here that covers the toe, which is great for upper durability, and then that wraps over here over the big toe. We have a breathable mesh throughout the entirety of the upper, and then in the midfoot we do have reinforced materials here on the lateral and medial side, and then we do have a nice structured boot for additional stability. We have 5 eyelets that run up in the shoe, and we do have a loop in the tongue, so this tongue stays pretty stable and secure when you're training, especially if you're lacing up your shoes pretty tight. Making our way to the midsole, we have a high abrasion foam midsole throughout, and we do have that balanced cushioning feature, which essentially means that the midsole and sole construction that Altra uses in this model gives this model a 0mm toe drop. Making our way to the outsole, we have a rubber tread patterning, and then we have some exposed midsole layers throughout. We do have these interflex grooves. That's what helps give this shoe its nice maneuverable feeling. So I do like that a lot in this model and the maneuverability that it has. Making our way back here to the heel, we have a heel tab right here to help pull this shoe on, and then we have some Solstice branding back here on the posterior lateral heel. So as a whole, those are the nuts and bolts of this shoe. This model does have a removable insole, but if you have any questions on this model's construction, hit me in the comments below and I will answer whatever you have. All right guys, that wraps up this review of the Altra Solstice XT2. If you have any questions on this model, drop a comment down below or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. And as always, guys, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I will see you in the next one, and I appreciate you.